How's it going, everybody, and welcome back into the SFS channel. My name is Gavin, and today we're going to be diving into another best ball draft on Underdog Fantasy. Remember, if you have not signed up for Underdog yet, do so and use promo code SFS when you deposit $10 or more. Underdog is going to double your money for you as a new user. And on my end, once I get confirmation that you signed up with promo code SFS, I'm going to give you draft guide access for the 2022 season through next June, absolutely free, just for supporting us here at the SFS channel. And we're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff this summer, including, if you guys want to go in the description of today's episode, there's a link to sign up for Underdog there. But there's also a link to the community Discord server. And in that Discord server, I'm going to be pushing and starting some best ball drafts with myself that you can compete against me. And obviously throughout this season have a chance to beat me in some of these Underdog best ball leagues. So go check out the SFS community Discord server. If you haven't signed up for Underdog yet, do so using promo code SFS, and let's dive into today's draft. Alrighty, here we go. So the draft is going to kick off in about 35 seconds. We yet again have another unique draft position. So we have had 0 repeats through any videos on Underdog Fantasy throughout this offseason. We started doing drafts a couple weeks ago in about the middle of May, so go check those episodes out if you have not done so already. Again, we have yet to get a duplicate pick, so the 1.7 pick should be really interesting here. I don't quite think we're going to be able to make that run of receivers with Kupp, Jefferson, and Chase. I expect they'll all be gone. So I think we're going to end up looking here at either an Austin Ekeler or a Derrick Henry. It's really going to depend on which of those two names falls to us, but I highly anticipate that those are going to be the two names that we end up targeting today. So again, one more time, the top of today's video, check out Underdog Fantasy. It's by far the best platform to do your 2022 fantasy football leagues on, and it's even a great tool. It costs a couple bucks to get in, but obviously you can win some prizes if your team does well throughout this season. If you're looking for a mock draft tool, again, this is actually entering a league, but it is the best ADP in the fantasy football industry right now. And it's unmatched in terms of the accuracy that I believe that their ADP represents. So promo code SFS, again, get double your money when you deposit as a new user, and then I'll get a hold of you or vice versa, and we will get you hooked up with a free 2022 draft guide on sizzlefantasy.com. I'm currently working on getting a ton more content on that draft guide right now, so go check that stuff out. And again, in the community Discord server, we will be doing private community mocks, so you'll have the chance to get into leagues and play and try and beat me. So here we go. It looks like actually, so Derrick Henry goes at the 1-4. CMC slips all the way to the 1-5. It's not every day that you see that happen. I'll take it. I'll take Austin Ekeler at the 1-7. He is my RB3 for this season. It was a touchdown monster and goal line magnet in the 2021 season. Had 20 total touchdowns. Now, I guess technically, I mean, he did get goal line carries, but maybe not a goal line magnet. But again, 20 TDs is dang impressive. And for a guy that kind of has that ridiculous fantasy skill set of being such a threat in the receiving game, you're getting everything you can ask for. You're getting everything that you want out of your fantasy RB1 here. And I think that, again, Austin Ekeler playing for an offense led by Justin Herbert, there's obviously a high ceiling to the production potential of that Chargers football team. And you know, I'll take my chances drafting him as my RB3. Technically, I would argue because of the injury track record, CMC only playing 10 games the last 2 years total, Ekeler might just be a safer pick. Now, I do think that, you know, CMC's ceiling is pretty much unmatched, but if he could, you know, get himself together between his hamstrings, his ankles, his shoulders, it's like, you know, playing the head, knees, shoulders, and toes game when you're a kid. That's Christian McCaffrey pointing to all the injuries that he has. So, obviously, you can see the frustration of somebody who had shares of CMC in leagues last year. If you're enjoying today's episode so far, make sure to drop down, leave a like, click that subscribe button. If you're new around here, we're always trying to grow the SFS community, and I want to help out as many of you guys as possible this season. We're still 6 picks away. If we just want to kind of peek at what's going on here, you know, fairly standard stuff at the end of the first round. Dalvin Cook, Najee Harris, you know, Travis Kelce, Joe Mixon, Stephon Diggs. This is pretty standard for ADP wise. What you expect to be happening on the board. I don't think this is going to happen, so I'm not going to get my hopes up super high right now, but I would freaking love to get my hands on Deandre Swift here at the 2.6 and get two players with just perfect fantasy skill sets at the running back position. They actually do have differing bye weeks too, which is obviously a huge deal in best ball formats, but I don't see any way he gets past the board here. Oh, it happened. Mark this down in your notes. Take a quick jot of this here. The first time in SFS history, the first time on the Sizzle Fantasy Sports YouTube channel that I've ever said I want a player and he actually freaking failed me. Always get sniped every time. It's by far the most unsatisfying feeling in the world when you're looking for someone to drop to you on the board and then someone just snatches them up. Literally the way it's been like karma, or I don't even know what it is at this point, but like the picks leading up to me, I'd be like, I want this player, and then I would talk through them, I'd give my analysis. You're on the doorstep. He made it to the pick in front of me. I'm on deck, if you will, and off the board every time. They're gone. So Deandre Swift is very, very similar in terms of, let's get back to business here and then we can joke around a little bit more with my next draft selection in 8 picks. But Swift and Eckler, I've said this multiple times. If you go check out some other videos I posted, we don't just do drafts here. We do a ton of other fancy content, talk through breakout players and rankings and, all kinds of great stuff. Must-have players, the whole works. But what I've said is that Deandre Swift to me is essentially a more talented Austin Eckler. Now his situation is not as good. He has not produced to the level of Austin Eckler in an individual fantasy season, but the talent is there. The skill set is there. The pieces to the puzzle that you need, the foundation is kind of being laid by the Lions right now to where you could see that Detroit situation become more and more positive each season. And you still got a guy just entering into year 3 in the National Football League. So I love everything with Deandre Swift. He was number 2 last season in running back target share. Ridiculous, 18.4%, I believe, off the top of my head. I don't know if it'll stay that high because you've got Jamison Williams coming into the situation, Amon-Ra St. Brown there full-time. Obviously, he broke out late last season. So now it's time to make a move here at another position. If Javonte Williams is there, I have no problem scooping him up at the 3.7. But, even James Conner, I wouldn't mind here. In the late 3rd round. I feel like that's pretty fair value. There are a couple of interesting receivers. So there goes Javonte. I'll probably end up just going super unholy RB heavy here if James Conner is still there on the board. I could also go Josh Allen, which would be interesting, but I like my later round QBs. I've found, and there goes James Conner. So I might just take Josh Allen here. I do not have any shares of him yet in best ball. By far, as a rushing threat and just the upside he brings to the table, this might have to be the pick for me. I've got a few shares of, again, Mike Williams. I do like Michael Pittman. I think those guys have really unique and interesting situations for this season. But we're going to shake things up here, do things a little bit differently. I'm feeling super great about the running back position right now. Obviously, more depth will have to be addressed at that spot later. But I think that this went about as good as could have been planned for the first 3 picks. In terms of getting very much so value in terms of ADP, and then, getting players that I have really, really strong and bullish projections for this upcoming season. So since we just drafted Josh Allen, I can't leave out the fact that he nailed a viewer in the face during Capital One's The Match. I don't know if you guys checked that out. I actually didn't get to catch it. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to watch it live, but obviously, the highlights and the eventful things that happened were everywhere, and Josh Allen was teeing off, I believe. Again, I didn't watch it, so I don't know if that wasn't the case, but he just sent it sailing and hooked his ball off to the right and drilled some dude in the face, and he fell over on the ground, and it was like rolling around, just being quite the personality. But that was by far the highlight of the match, if you ask me, aside from Aaron Rodgers obviously nailing the final putt to end that thing. So fun fact, I actually just went golfing for the first time the other day. So if I'm saying things that don't make sense whatsoever, it's because I don't play golf. I want to start playing golf, but again, I went for the first time yesterday, the day before you're seeing this video. If you're watching it the day it's posted, if you are, thank you very much. I appreciate the heck out of you. But so that's a little bit of a detour from fantasy talk, but let's peek at the board here. What's been going on? Who's been being drafted from under our nose? There's a lot of players up to here, up to no good, stealing players that I wanted. Don't get me wrong here. I like some of the guys on the board. We're 3 picks away, but I might just pound the draft button on one of these receivers down the list. I would not mind a Hollywood Brown whatsoever. Don't have any shares of him yet in best ball. I think his ceiling, those first 6 weeks, man, those are going to be ridiculous. Between him and Kyler, that chemistry. If he gets drafted, though, if Hollywood gets drafted here, I'm just going to smash the draft button on Jerry Jeudy and not think twice about it, which very well might end up happening here. I'm going to get one of those 2 players. So it looks like whatever the heck this guy's username is, Dav1NC1 is going to pick for me, and he picked Marquis Brown. So I love the upside again. This is a best ball draft. What am I looking for here? I want guys that are going to walk onto the football field and give me sky-high, crazy, ridiculous ceiling week in and week out. That's what's going to win you these leagues. Safe floors are valuable to an extent, maybe later in the draft board. If you ask me, in my personal, humble opinion here, you can call me an idiot if you want. You can go check out the community Discord, play in a league with me, and whoop up on me if you want to. Again, promo code SFS on Underdog Fantasy. What I love about Hollywood is last season, the deep targets he was getting from Lamar Jackson in a run-centric offense were super, super. It gave me a lot of reason for optimism, let's put it that way. And when you go to a situation where Kyler Murray is one of the most beautiful deep balls in the National Football League, he's a fantastic deep passer, has great touch on his passes. They played together at Oklahoma together. We're both drafted in the first round of the 2019 draft. I think it's a match made in heaven. And you don't have DeAndre Hopkins for the first 6 weeks, and Christian Kirk left. So you've got a lot of stuff that just looks great. In those first 6 weeks, maybe he has regression in the later stages of the season, but I still think he's going to be fantastic. DeAndre Hopkins is no Superman. This guy is a fantastic football player, but I should have said Iron Man rather than Superman because, he can fly around there and make the Hail Murray possible. But you've got a situation where this guy is not immune to injuries. DeAndre Hopkins has had hamstring injuries more and more frequently. He had, a knee issue that knocked him out for the stretch end of last year. There's a real shot that those first 6 games are not the only contests that Hollywood Brown gets to play without DeAndre Hopkins there. And even if D-Hop is on the field, Hollywood's going to feast on that number 2 coverage. And this is a pass-first football team as opposed to, the Ravens, whereas they're going to be one of the more run-centric teams in the National Football League. So I got to get my head in the game here. We are picking in 2 selections. Again, if you guys are enjoying today's video, drop down, leave it with a like. Go check me out on social media. Twitter is one of the spaces we're looking to grow right now, at Sizzle Fantasy. Can't draft a quarterback here. That doesn't help anybody. I wouldn't mind Amari Cooper now. He does have a differing bye week. I think Amari has definite top 12 potential. The one issue here and the one risk, which I'm going to indulge in here, so I'll tell you, I'm gonna take a bite out of that Amari Cooper pie here. We are drafting him at the 5-7, which I think is pretty dang good value. But there was that 23rd assault allegation or sexual misconduct thing against Deshaun Watson, which obviously sparks a lot of concern because he could be suspended the whole year. We don't know. It's not official yet, but it's very possible. So if that's the case, Amari Cooper is going to go from in a situation where what I just drafted him hoping for is my optimism that, he made it through the first 22 unscathed. Now, that doesn't mean that he's not a slime ball or didn't do something very wrong, but at the end of the day, I didn't see the evidence. So I don't really know the whole situation. I'm not following this very closely, except for the fact that obviously if Deshaun Watson were to face any repercussions at a disciplinary action, that impacts Amari Cooper a lot. So if he did something wrong, by all means, I hope they, suspend him for the whole season and screw my best ball team over. That's fine. Do what's actually right in terms of being a human being. But for Amari Cooper's sake, obviously his fantasy season and upside, which is why I'm seeing him slip here, and I'd actually be interested to go check out what his ADP is right now. But it's falling because of that increased risk of no Deshaun Watson, because we know what a wide receiver 1 for a Deshaun Watson-led football team represents. but we also know the drastic difference that's going to be at play if I believe Jacoby Brissett is the starting quarterback for this team. Because, yes, Baker is on the team, but Baker is not playing for the Browns this year. Let's not get any confusion stirred up about that. I do not expect him, even if Deshaun's suspended the whole year and is not allowed to step foot in a Browns facility until 2023, Baker is not showing up to that football team. So, let's take a peek here. What's going on? We've got a situation where I love my first 5 draft picks. Again, Amari Cooper could totally fall on his face and do absolutely bare bones things if he doesn't have. And look at that. So we got the good graces today of having Deandre Swift fall to me. Darnell Mooney was the player I was revving towards talking about there, and then he gets drafted. So we'll not be hearing about him today. I don't like Antonio Gibson, man. He's risky. Let's see what's going on here on the board. Obviously out of the quarterback market. I could take Michael Thomas. I just see so much risk there. I honestly might take Amon-Ra St. Brown, which I think is what I'm going to end up doing. Call me crazy. I really wanted Treylon Burks there as well, but and let's see, did I screw myself with the receiver? No, I did not. I thought I screwed myself with the bye weeks for a second there. What's Treylon Burks is 6 as well. Okay, we'll keep that in mind. I don't expect him to be there though. Okay, so let's talk about why I didn't draft some of these other players. Michael Thomas, I know what he represents. I know that the last, he has a wide receiver 1 overall finish. I just can't help but wonder, is he the same player? I don't think it's unrealistic or unreasonable on my end to have serious doubt that the player we saw 2 whole seasons ago is still the guy that we're going to see in 2022. The 2019 Michael Thomas was unmatched. Volume off the charts. One of the greatest individual possession receiver seasons that we've seen all time. But, again, between injuries the last 2 years, quarterback change, age progression in terms of him nearing the age of 30, what does that mean for his statistical regression and athletic demise, if you will? I'm not going to say he's going to be washed up, but I don't know. I think there's a lot more upside and opportunity, especially you've got Chris Olave and Jarvis in the situation. I'm not going to act like those guys are going to nudge him out of the target fold, but it is more increased opportunity for the quarterback to throw the football elsewhere. Treylon Burks, I think, lands in a beautiful situation with the Titans. I was this close to picking Treylon first. I've got about even shares of them right now between my leagues. I just really like what Amon-Ra represents as a big slot, and I think that he is definitely going to find success here again in year 2. He was technically the fantasy football MVP for the fantasy playoffs. He had more points scored than anyone else, which was ridiculous because of what he was doing for Detroit down the stretch. But I've got to pick in 3 selections here. So I got to get my head back in the game here. I love Adam Thielen. I think he's underrated right now. You're talking about a guy who is a TD magnet. Kind of got slapped in the face with the injury-prone tag, but really hasn't actually been injured that much. He's had ankle problems. But aside from that, in 2020, he was not injured. He had COVID. And I think that he's being unfairly dumped down the board because of our love for Justin Jefferson. And we know for a fact Justin Jefferson is the wide receiver 1 in that offense. But the guy Kirk Cousins absolutely freaking loves throwing the football to in the red zone is Adam Thielen. He's a heck of a possession receiver himself, and he's really talented, really savvy. So even if he misses some games here, that's fine by me. I feel really good about this top 4 receiver group we've got going here. The top 2 RBs, the quarterback, everything seems like it's just going so great today. The last 2 drafts I've done, I felt really good about. I don't know. You tell me. You could think that my draft right now is going absolutely abysmal, and you could think that I'm the worst drafter in the world. If that's the case, let me know in the comment section. I don't mind. And any as well. If you have any questions, drop those down in the comment section as well. I try to be the most interactive fantasy channel on YouTube. So whenever you guys have got something to ask me, put it down there, and I'll do my best to get back to you in as timely of a manner as possible. I will apologize every once in a while. This doesn't typically happen during the summer because I've got more time to answer and respond to comments. During the fantasy season, obviously, we're moving so fast, getting such a high volume of episodes out that I'll miss some comments, but never my intention. I want to be as much of a resource and a tool for you guys as possible, and even if that means just picking my brain and then at the end of the day we disagree about something, doesn't hurt my feelings. So Again, if you guys are looking for any advice or any details about players you're looking to draft this year, put that down there. I'll get back to you all. So in terms of roster construction here, I've done a phenomenal job, I will say. I'll pat myself on the back here of not screwing myself over with bye weeks, which is something we definitely struggled with in the first few best ball drafts of this year where I wasn't quite familiar with the bye weeks. Week 9 was, in particular, the biggest, what would you call it, culprit of absolutely murdering my lineups for that week. I had so many week 9 buys. I had like over 4 players. No, they weren't all at the same position, but still, that's definitely going to be an L when I play that week. So let's see here. 3 picks away again. I kind of like being in the middle of the board because it lets me mess around a little bit, chat with you guys, be laid back and casual here, but then I can make my picks and have a little bit of time as opposed to, some drafts, it's like you get on the bend and then you're in a situation where, I wouldn't mind a Christian Kirk here, just to point that out. There's an opportunity to draft a Damien Harris as well. There's a few running backs I still like on the table. Let's see what happens here. I would not mind a Christian Kirk, though, because although he's not really, in my eyes, a true wide receiver 1 on an NFL roster, I do feel Chris Olave goes there. That's interesting. Love Chris Olave, by the way. So, let's see here. Week 11 bye for Kirk. Adding fuel to the fire here. Let's just dump more gasoline on the pile of wood. That is my wide receiver position. And, excuse me. Underdog just said it's not your turn to pick, but I just picked. Come on, guys. So, I feel very good about this. What is this now? A 5-man depth chart there. So what was I talking about? Chris Olave, Christian Kirk. Okay, so Christian Kirk I don't think is really a number 1 receiver on an NFL team. What he is, though, is a talented player who is capable of getting a massive pile of targets thrown in his lap this year because he's still technically the best receiver on the Jacksonville Jaguars depth chart. Now, they brought in Zay Jones. They still have Marvin Jones. Zay Jones, Marvin Jones. Nice. And they have Laviska Shenault as well, who I think will be more of that slot option. But in terms of stretching the field, I think that, Marvin Jones is capable of doing that, but he's getting a bit older. He's been one of my favorite, sneaky fantasy guys for the last few seasons now. But at some point, someone else is going to step up and take the lion's share of the targets. And I think that it's not too crazy to expect that to be Christian Kirk. So I'm going to draft him there. And again, we are very thin at running back, so I'm going to take a bunch of shots in the dark here. But you only have to start 2 RBs in best ball. And for me, outside of week 8, week 6, and any injuries, I feel extremely comfortable with that group. So I might just throw one more just kind of YOLO at the board here at the wide receiver position and just make that group ridiculous because you start 3 wideouts every week and a flex in these best ball formats. So if I can get my boy Christian Watson here, week 14 bye, would continue adding to the pot of having every single freaking wide receiver with a different bye week, I would just go nuts. We have not addressed the tight end position yet. Could draft Dallas Goedert. Could. That's the key word. Could. I just drafted him yesterday, or whenever I just did my last draft. Still got my boy Irv on the board, my boy David Njoku's out there. We're doing it. Give me the wide receiver with the most upside on that Green Bay Packers football team roster. Give me the guy who I think has a heck of a shot to catch a ton of passes from Aaron Rodgers this year. Again, there's no reason that he couldn't surpass a 25% target share, or at least get close. I mean, 22 to 23%. Maybe if he just absolutely smashes on his upside in terms of catching passes from Aaron Rodgers, being a 6'5", 4.36 40-yard dash runner, and just being an athletic freak. I think that you give me a guy in the middle to late 9th round, take that every single time. So that does open the door, though. I would love Chase Edmonds. I think that he would be fantastic. I like the idea of Rashad Penny, don't get me wrong, but when you've got a guy who you drafted in the 2nd round and Kenneth Walker, who I think is a better player than Rashad Penny, and Rashad Penny has chronic injuries. We're playing the head, knees, shoulders, and toes, or head, shoulders, knees, and toes game earlier. Rashad Penny plays that game. Who were we talking about before? with Christian McCaffrey. Rashad Penny and Christian McCaffrey, what they do on their days off is they get together and they play head, shoulders, knees, and toes and point to all the spots that they've been injured. So it's a really fun game. If you're looking for any other players, I can give you some references to other guys that like to play that one too. But man, that pick came out fast. And, of course, they took all my freaking running backs. Thanks, guys. That really appreciate it. Dameon Pierce is probably a must-draft player for this team at this point. Oh, boy, we are, like, on the clock here. And, come on, you've helped me once before. If you just want to lay off and not draft Dallas Goedert here, that would be ideal. Because then I could address tight end and then not – oh, man. But Jameson Williams, dude, how many picks do I have left? I got plenty. All right. You can draft Dallas Goedert. I want Jameson Williams. He just drafted Alexander Madison. I'm just trying this out, you guys. I could be making an absolutely royal mistake. Man, I don't know if I can. It would have been easier for me to pass on Dallas Goedert and just not bother with that position had he drafted Jameson Williams or vice versa, drafted one or the other. I don't think I can let Goddard slide too much farther just because I had not drafted a tight end yet. Yeah, I would have been doing myself a severe disservice by not addressing tight end, not addressing a running back position, which is insanely thin still on this team. And then I would also just be adding to my easily deepest position. But I think that this position group has a shot if, I can maintain steady production at RB to be the difference in this league. So we'll see. I love these two top RBs, but don't get me wrong, I will need someone else to come in and play at other points in the season. Don't mind the idea of Rojo. He could be a nice goal line threat. I see very real possibilities of him being utilized in Kansas City this season. Henderson and Naheem Hines would be sneaky pickups as well. All guys except... All right, so only Dameon Pierce has a conflicting bye week with Deandre Swift. But again, it doesn't really matter. I just need bodies. I'm going to pick some of these guys that have kind of those pass-catching niches that I can kind of key in on there. So bye-bye, Jameson Williams. I absolutely love you, man. Please come back to me in a different draft, but today was not the day. Man, I guess I would have also been double-dipping into Detroit, which isn't like a cardinal sin of fantasy football. Some people are just totally against it, but think about those teams that had T. Higgins and Jamar Chase last season. Were you really complaining that much when Jamar Chase went for 37 points or more, and T. Higgins would get you like 6? No, because between the two, you averaged over 20 points that week. So it's fine. I mean, as long as you get the right situation. Now, maybe Detroit is not that situation, because is Jared Goff going to lay out those numbers for both of those guys? Probably not as likely as you are with Joe Burrow doing so. But it's we can be optimistic. And the running backs are going off the board. We're being left hot and dry. All right, there's nothing left for us here. Man, isn't this just so fun, guys? This is what I can't get enough of fantasy football. I did this to myself. I cannot pretend that I did not. I do like the idea of Rachaad White. He actually has a week 11 bye. Man, I don't love it. But if something were to happen to Leonard Fournette, Rachaad White would easily be put into an amazing situation. I do want to get my hands on Daryl Henderson, though, because I think that Cam Akers might not be 100% Cam Akers right away this year. I think that there's still some expected recovery timeline from that Achilles. So I'm going to keep him close to my hip pocket here in drafts this offseason. Okay, so what was that? The 11th round. So we've got 12, 13, 14. We have 7 picks left. 7 rounds. I still got a whole lot of running back to address here. Would like to get a second quarterback, but I've been kind of putting that off. Because if we look at the position group here, I mean, look at a guy like Ryan Tannehill, whose ADP is just dumped since losing A.J. Brown. Daniel Jones is definitely not a good NFL quarterback, but he's a guy that can run around, and as long as he doesn't fumble the ball 3 times in a game, is probably going to give you decent numbers if he's healthy. Look at his rookie season. He had, I forget what it was at the time, but it was a comparison that I saw on Instagram between Phil Rivers and Daniel Jones, and it was like Phillip Rivers has never had I don't know. I'm just pretending and making this number up. It's either like 30 or 35 point fantasy football performance in his career, and like Daniel Jones did it in his rookie season, and it was like, is Daniel Jones the next big thing? Which clearly, in hindsight, we know the answer to, but it was funny for the time. I could draft Justin Fields here as a sneaky quarterback too that's gonna have to run a ton this upcoming season. Shoot, I can't draft Irv Smith in this league because he's got the same bye as Dallas Goedert. By the way, I think it's funny that Gronk's ADP is still up here when he's literally not committing to football right now. It's fun stuff. Okay. I might just pull the trigger and do a heinous reach for Daryl Henderson. I mean, the tight end position to me is not super valuable to address right now. I've got so many receivers. Don't get me wrong. Jarvis is nice. Crowder is nice. And like true season-long set your lineup every week type gigs, that's probably the direction I would go. But I got to cover my ass right now and get some running backs. So that's what we're doing there with Daryl Henderson all the way up there at the 12-6. It's ugly. I didn't like it. But I'm peer pressuring myself into doing it. Kenneth Gainwell is, again, someone I would freaking die to snatch up here because I think that as a niche player catching passes out of the backfield for Philadelphia, Miles Sanders is super freaking athletic, and I love him as a player. But he's not a great pass catcher. To an extent, he kind of has a little bit of butterfingers or stone hands, whatever you want to call it. It's not exactly pretty. Let's just say that when you're watching Miles Sanders catch footballs. But Kenneth Gainwell is someone who I think has legit value, again, as a receiver in that offense. So wouldn't mind scooping him up. I do want to queue up David Njoku here. I wouldn't mind snatching him up as my tight end too. Albert I'm fine with as well. Greg Dulcich, there's kind of a debate between which one's going to be the guy at the tight end position this season for that Denver Broncos football team. I think it's going to be Albert. Yes, you've got a regime change, and usually I will err on the side of, something I've talked about with Josh Jacobs, having the new regime with the Raiders, bring in Zamir White, not picking up Jacobs' 50-year option. It's kind of like the writing is on the wall for who eventually will be the starter, who will be the guy for that football team. But, and again, it's no guarantee. I mean, a guy could come out and play absolutely nuts, and then obviously if they're a good GM, they will change their opinion and do what's in the best interest of the football team. But being that Alberto is the larger in terms of size and the faster prospect, he's just a better athlete. They were extremely high on him already. Otherwise, they wouldn't have shipped Noah Fant to Seattle if they didn't think they could go without that position. So I think Dulcich is nice, but I think that Alberto's definitely got some place in that offense still. You know what? I'm going to put my money where my mouth is here. So I just thought through this team. I did something intelligent for once. Round of applause for that. Give me a like for today's episode just for that little nugget right there. So I kind of reflected on the team and realized I also had Amari Cooper. And remembering this fact that we had drafted Amari Cooper back in round 5, I thought to myself, well, if the risk here is Deshaun Watson, if Deshaun Watson is not playing this season, that's probably going to impact David Njoku just as much as it would Amari Cooper. So I don't want to get slam dunked twice by that situation playing out. And I would much rather have, I feel comfortable with this tight end duo here. I think that can result fairly decent for us. Lots of tight ends are expected to go off the board here in these next couple of rounds or so here. But it is kind of funny, too, how despite Noah Fant being this uber-athletic tight end, that just situationally going to Seattle has put his ADP lower than a guy who we once thought of as inferior to him in Alberto. So it's just kind of how situations impact season-long fantasy football is very interesting stuff to me. I think I do want to go Kenneth Gainwell with this next pick. Poor James Robinson. That December Achilles injury just killed his draft stock, and obviously a lot of optimism about his usage in that offense. Let's peek down here. I could use a second quarterback. That's definitely something that this team would have a use for. I don't really think I have to address it quite yet, though. I mean, obviously the names are not very good. But when you draft Josh Allen in the third round, you are basically expecting that. So let's just make note of who I cannot draft. Nobody. We're good. No one else is a week 7 bye. You're expecting that he's going to be the QB1. That's my expectation, essentially, or that he'll be bare bones or bare minimum here, a top 3 asset this season. I'm expecting things to play out where the only week I don't have to start him is his worst game of the season, maybe his second worst game of the year, and his bye week. So the other, 14 games, I want that guy in my lineup. So there's Kenneth Gainwell. Now I don't feel so terrible about that position group because I feel that if Eckler and Swift are healthy, they're definitely going to be my highest grossing players at that position every single week. Now, if something happens, one goes down, I think Kenneth Gainwell can give me a better floor than some other options, obviously, just in terms of being a pass catcher and this being a half PPR league, so him adding some value there. Now, Daryl Henderson as well. We'll see what happens with Cam Akers. And Rachaad White, I think, it's more of an upside kind of shot in the dark type play there. Just in terms of if something happens to Fournette, that makes you feel a little bit better about that. But I also wouldn't mind picking up Marlon Mack or just, I'm going to need multiple dart throws here to land that guy who's going to turn into hopefully the RB3 for this team because it's not like all these guys are going to hit their lofty expectations for those guys. So I'm not going to, pigeonhole myself into whatever that situation might be. Marcus Mariota is really interesting here. I think as a rusher, he could be very productive this season, but obviously he doesn't have a ton of weapons to work with. His top 2 guys, Drake London and Kyle Pitts, are fantastic. But outside of that, I mean, it's really a mystery for how that situation is going to evolve here. Sorry, guys, check my phone for a second there. Let's see. Let's peek at some other people's teams. We're 4 picks away. Maybe we shouldn't do that. I feel like the first section of this draft just absolutely flew by, but now we're just kind of dragging to the end here as we're seeing all sorts of players go off the board in different orders. I could draft a Mac Jones. I think that to me now, you can call me crazy because I don't think that Mac Jones has the highest fantasy ceiling per se, obviously, because he has no rushing ability, to be honest. But what I do think is I think that Mac Jones, if you look at Kirk Cousins, a guy who every year is slept on, yet every year gives you quality consistency at the quarterback position, I think that that's what Mac Jones is. I think that he's a high-level NFL quarterback at his best. I think he has a chance to be a very cerebral player, one of the best at the line of scrimmage, and win that way. But for fantasy here, again, we've got Josh Allen. We're not really worried about ceiling numbers. Josh gives you that every week. But in terms of if Josh fell on his face one week, the bye week, they've got different buys, I feel very comfortable just with that backup production of a Mac Jones here. Zach Wilson has a lot higher of a ceiling, and maybe I'll regret not picking him because he's got a heck of a lot of weapons. Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis, Michael Carter. He's got dudes now to work with. But and I do feel very comfortable with him. I think that, I watched his footwork and I watched some tape on Zach Wilson, and I really saw a progression and improvement over the back half of the season. But if you ask Colin Cowherd, quarterbacks are not allowed to wear their hat backwards, and Zach Wilson did so at a baseball game. So his career is over if you understand that joke. Quarterback and tight end positions are squared away. At this point, I think I'm just going to draft the best player available. And actually, so Jamal Williams is down here for Detroit. I'm just going to queue him up because in terms of having a handcuff, I think that, there might not be a better way to do it at this point because, again, Deandre Swift has only played his highest point in, both seasons, 2020 and 2021, he played 13 games each. So you're talking about him missing 3 games his rookie season. The extra game gets added this year. 4 games missed this season. So in terms of that, the best way to address that, and there he goes, bye Jamal, would probably to draft the handcuff, who is no longer there. You broke my heart, Fantasy Woods. All right. Sony Michel is interesting as well for Miami. I wanted to get my hands on Chase Edmonds, but I could see him carving out a role in what should be an improved offense. I do like Raheem Mostert. He's very, very explosive, but I don't know if he'll really amount to anything this season. I'm going to throw the dartboard here, or I always say throw the dartboard. We're going to take the throw at the dartboard with Sony Michel because I think that he could be useful on the goal line, as well as he's a decent receiver, but Edmonds should handle that work. But in terms of whoever their lead goal line back is, I expect Sony to command that role. And if something happens to Mostert, that's a situation as well where I would think that means more touches in the run game on first and second down for Sony Michel there. So we have stockpiled 6 deep at the running back position. I'm starting to feel more comfortable with that group. I would like to take, let's see here, we've got the 17th and 18th round, so we've got 2 more picks. I wouldn't care if I split those between running back and receiver, but if I could find 2 nice receivers, I would take them. Again, I am kind of looking at best available between these 2 position groups. We've already got some stock in the Packers receiving core, so I don't know if Sammy Watkins is the right option for this team. Again, he's a week 1 warrior, meaning he'll come out and have his best game of the season on opening day, and then he'll get banged up and fade hard down the stretch of the season. There's always the opportunity to, close your eyes and, again, take a shot in the dark or throw a dart at the board with Julio Jones. Somehow he still projects 94 points, even though he's not on a team, and we'll see if he ends up being signed. We are kind of getting into the summer here, but, we haven't even hit remotely close. Like, we're still 2+ months away from preseason, so when you consider 2+ months from the preseason, there's a lot of time for him to find a home. Devin Duvernay is interesting. He could step up. Sammy and Marquis both left the Ravens offense. Duvernay could have more opportunity to produce in that aspect and sector of things. What else do we got going on here? I might just draft Julio Jones. I don't really want to invest in another share of the Dolphins' backfield, but I could, I guess. Zamir White might not be a terrible investment either. Lots of receivers. Poor Terrace Marshall, dude. His stock has just plummeted. I drafted him in the second round of a Dynasty League last year, and we only retained 16 players a year. I won the championship last season. Unfortunately, I don't think Terrace is going to make the cut this year. I would love to draft him again because I think the talent is there, but, man, that situation blows. 24 seconds. I better make my mind up pretty quick here. But, again, Donovan Peoples-Jones benefits if Watson is the quarterback. I don't know if that's the case. Kendrick Bourne's kind of sneaky. He saw some nice use in games last year. I'm going to say screw it, though. Maybe Julio lands with a team with better quarterback play, and he just meshes better with. He did get dinged up. The hamstrings were, again, flaring up last year, but he's still a very good player and has very high football IQ and awareness. I could see in the games last year, just when he would get the opportunity to make plays, he would do things that a lot of guys can't do, but again, that health factor, and we have no idea what team he's going to be playing with, are clearly the biggest issues in terms of what ends up happening for him in the 2022 season. It's kind of sad. If you think about, I'm obviously a bit younger here. I'm a college-age person. So my growing up was watching Antonio Brown and Julio Jones, and now both of those guys aren't on teams. Kind of the legends of my youth are on their way out the door. So AB's apparently said he wasn't going to play this season, and then we'll see. Again, Julio's not on the team either, so it might be kind of the end of the era of those two. They've been out of their prime for a few years now, I would say. At least, I'll say a couple, because AB did win a Super Bowl with the Bucs. That wasn't his prime, but then obviously he was bouncing around from Las Vegas, or were they still in Oakland when AB was a Raider, or were they in Vegas? I think they were still in Oakland. And then Julio has been very nagged with injuries in his waning days with the Falcons, and then obviously last year with Tennessee wasn't super pretty. So I remember one of his best plays of the year, too, I think was overturned. It was like a toe drag touchdown on the back of the goal line. I want to say it was against the Seahawks, but I think they overturned that. I could take Zamir White here, and again, bet on his usage in the event something. I very well may just need this depth at running back. It looks like I'm overdrafting the crap out of the position, but I really don't want to get caught with my pants down if something happens to one of these two. And week 6 and week 8 could be very ugly for me if things don't play out my way. And let's look at the receivers I'd really be drafting here. Kendrick Bourne, who I passed on last round, I'd be fine with. Justin Ross, I mean, there's no guarantee he makes the team. There's the argument that he's the most talented undrafted free agent player of all time. But again, it's no guarantee. It's definitely not something that's for certain. And then, I mean, James Washington with Dallas. Paris Campbell, do we really want to go down that roller coaster ride again? Bryan Edwards, poor guy. I don't know how many targets are left for you. Honestly, I can't believe Zay Jones isn't being drafted ahead of Romeo Doubs. That's surprising enough to me in its own right. So I think I'm just going to do it. I mean, New Orleans is interesting with Mark Ingram. He's getting pretty up there in age, and I don't know if he's quite the same player that he once was in his prime. But I'll take the young legs here. I'll go Zamir White to cap off today's draft. That was my 18th round selection. Yeah, we are finishing up the draft board. So thank you guys so much for watching today's episode. It means a lot to me if you stuck through to this point in the episode. Remember, if you want to play Underdog Best Ball Drafts with me, all you got to do is go to their site. The link is in the description of today's episode to join Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code SFS. It'll get you double your money when you deposit, and then I'll get a hold of you, or you'll get a hold of me. I'll get your email address from Underdog, and we'll get you set up with that free 2022 redraft dynasty in-season weekly advice, those draft guides, kits, whatever you want to call them. You're getting all access to sizzlefantasy.com. Again, when you use promo code SFS on Underdog Fantasy Football. So I had a great time in today's draft. I can't wait to hopefully be drafting with you guys this summer again. Join the community Discord server. It's totally free to do. That's where I'll be sending the invite links to join those community best ball drafts here hosted on Underdog Fantasy. And I absolutely cannot wait to keep doing some fun stuff with you guys this summer. So again, once this pick's made here, we'll do a deep dive, or not a deep dive, but a quick recap rather. Definitely not a deep dive of the board today, of our picks. And as I kick the desk that the mic is on, hopefully you guys didn't get a ton of... Look at all these drafts. This is draft number 6 for this offseason, and we're going to be doing a whole lot more. So stay tuned throughout this offseason, everybody. We're going to be doing a lot of fun stuff. Again, if you've got questions, please put those in the comment section. I'm happy to get back to you guys. Josh Allen, the main man at the top of the roster here. Our third-round selection, Mac Jones. That's the duo, the AFC East combo. We absolutely smashed the running back position in the first 2 rounds of the draft, Austin Eckler and Deandre Swift, and then a bunch of shots in the dark with our eyes closed to hopefully give us some upside, hopefully land us some insurance in those weeks 6 and 8 and any potential injury or COVID weeks. If we're doing that again here this season. Rachaad White, Daryl Henderson, Kenneth Gainwell, Sony Michel, and Zamir White, all with positional utility and use cases in their offenses. But we'll see if they're able to hit on that upside in this season. And then wide receiver. There's a whole lot of upside in this group. Hollywood Brown with the Arizona Cardinals weeks 1 through 6 is going to crush it. And then you get the opportunity to continue building upon that success down the stretch of the season. Amari Cooper, boy, if I got him in the 5th round and Deshaun Watson plays this season, sign me up for having a top 12 wide receiver in the 5th round. That's something I feel very good about there, again, if D-Watt's out there. Amon-Ra St. Brown, the fantasy football MVP down the stretch of the fantasy playoffs last year. Highest score at any skill position outside of QB probably. He was the highest of any running back or receiver, but again, I said probably because I don't know if that includes the quarterback position, but still, he dominated down the stretch. Big slot. I actually, heard or saw someone on Twitter call him kind of the discount Cooper Kupp, which I thought was kind of funny. So I thought I'd share that with you guys. in terms of his route style, his usage, and just ability to produce in that offense. Adam Thielen, he's being slept on. He's being underrated. The Minnesota Vikings still have a very competent offense, and I think that you get a guy who is a touchdown magnet and gives you a lot of upside in a given week. Sign me up for that. Christian Kirk. There's going to be a high volume of passes coming his way as a top receiver for Trevor Lawrence this year. They're going to have a lot of negative game scripts again this season. So at the end of the day, I think that he's going to see a lot of volume heading his direction. Christian Watson, man, I can get 25% share, possibly. It's not guaranteed, but possibly give me that much of Aaron Rodgers. That's a big piece of the pie there. And I think that a guy that talented can definitely hit on that upside. And then just for old time's sake, we drafted some upside in Julio Jones. And the tight end position is average with Dallas Goedert and Albert O. I would say that, for being a tight end, Dallas Goedert's a pretty polarizing player in fantasy this season. Some guys love him, some guys hate him. I think he's fine. I don't really fall too far on either side of the Dallas Goedert spectrum there. But if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure to drop down, leave a like. I appreciate the heck out of you guys for staying with me throughout today's episode. I will for sure be back on Monday. We'll see if I post anything throughout the weekend. YouTube Shorts, maybe I post an episode. We'll see. Maybe I'll get crazy with it. But that's all the more reason to turn that bell on so you're never late for an episode. And I will see you guys whenever that is. It'll be no later than Monday afternoon. Peace out.